Unit 6, second shooters and teams. So here's the big question. Do you shoot alone or do you work with a second shooter? So in this unit, we're going to discuss some of the issues. So let's get straight into it. So why work with a second shooter? So firstly, sometimes it's asked. Couples will say, do you have second shooters? They're interested in that because it's a big wedding and they want both sides to be shot during preparation. They're in different locations. It's not feasible for you to be able to shoot the prep in different geographies. So having a second shooter allows you to be able to shoot simultaneously in different places, but also helpful during the ceremony. And in fact, if you're trying to sell this to the couple, then these are the things that one would say, that you can shoot simultaneously prep, that you can shoot different angles during the ceremony. In fact, during the ceremony, it's one of the only times you're kind of rigid. You can't move. You're the lead photographer, it's your business, you're at the front. So your second shooter is at the back. They've got the fun positions, in fact. They're doing the wides, they're doing potentially fisheyes, they're doing long shots, reverse shots up the aisle, photographing it. So the storytelling has multiple positions and multiple angles. But also you're selling multiple coverage. So the client knows they're getting more pictures, they're getting more angles in the story. A second shooter is also useful during other parts of the wedding. So if you're doing a group shoot, and often couples ask for groups, even if you're a documentary photographer, it often gets asked, can you do group shots? I do group shots and I still do them from time to time. You won't find any group shots on my website. I don't show groups, but I will do them if the client wants them, and I'll limit them to 10. In that time, when you're taking those 10 groups, that could take half an hour. So you're out of action for half an hour, shooting the couple with their family. But during this time, if you've got a second shooter, they can shoot the tables, they can shoot still life, they can shoot guests, they can shoot the room, and so on. So the coverage is still maintaining, the work is getting bigger, and they're backing you up. A second shooter is useful in all sorts of ways. You have a colleague that you're sharing this experience with, and that could be right from the start, from arriving at your place, at your studio, collecting the equipment, diverging and going off, coming back together. You pick someone and you train someone so they reflect your work, that it's on brand. That's really important. How do you do that? Well, this is a really important question. I've never thrown a second shooter into one of my jobs without going through a process with them. And that process can change depending on the person. There's no finite rule about how long it takes. It depends on the case. And that is always different. I know when they're ready, and that has sometimes taken 3 weddings, that's sometimes taken 12. And it literally is a process where I feel they're ready to be my second shooter. And what I normally do is I take them as a third when a third is not booked. So I go back to the couple leading up to the wedding and say, I'd like to bring a third photographer, there's no extra charge. Would you mind if they're fed a meal, so they're covered during the meal? So there's no impact to that. But they're often couples, I've never had a couple ever say, you know what, I don't want your third photographer, even for free. It's never happened. So I bring my thirds, which are actually my trainee second shooters, to my weddings, and then they can help as well, and I get to see their work with no pressure. And over time, I make sure that they're on brand, that they're shooting the way I want, that they conduct themselves the way I want, that they reflect what I do the way I want. And when I know that's right, and when I know that's ready, we go together and they become my second shooter. In a way, these people become family, and I think that's important, the way you should think about it. Rather than thinking that these are just freelancers, you pick the phone up and so on, you're looking for the lowest price. You're not. You're looking for some loyalty, you're looking for family. You're looking for people who, if they are freelance, will put you above someone else. So when you go to them and say, look, I've got a wedding on the 12th of July, are you free? And they're like, oh, actually, this other company have asked me on the same day. Have you confirmed yet? No, I haven't. I don't know which one to choose. They won't say this, they just book you in. So you know what, I did have it penciled with another company, but I'd love to work with you, John. And they become part of the team because you look after them. So I think you need to treat them as employees. And in fact, my approach is to work with employees. So I have full-time employees. This isn't obviously a model for everyone, but I believe you get more value in employing colleagues in a full-time payroll context and having a wider freelance family. So the freelancers and the payroll are equal status in a sense. And I've often taken everyone away on trips. We do 6 monthly events. We have big Christmas parties. At the last Christmas party, we had 12 people, and there's a real sense of family and community, which comes from this larger group. I have 3 payroll for colleagues, and the others are my freelance. So I guess the question is, how much should you be looking to pay for a second shooter? And I think the going rate in the UK is somewhere around £200 to £300. I pay 300 as a second shooter. That's at the top level, but I'm bringing them to top level weddings, and I want to make sure that my shooters are the best shooters I can have for me, and I'm happy to pay it. That also raises the question whether or not then, if they are at the level you want and they're side by side with you, then can they shoot for you without you? So there may be times when you, even though the brand is in your name, that you have a booking and another couple come along and they say, are you free? And this happens to all of us, and you're not. So at that point, you might be able to have some confidence and say, actually, I'm not free, but my colleague who's trained by me, who's worked with me for 2 years, she's done 50 weddings with me, she's done 80 weddings on her own, is available. This is her work that she's done for me. Then she shoots the wedding on your behalf. And maybe that might be a discounted price. It probably should be, especially if you're the brand, but there's still value in paying her. Now, if you do that, then I think she should get a higher fee as a lead shooter. So I think you need some kind of consistent structure between a second shooter and a lead shooter. At that point, that could be 400, 500, 550. Depends on what you think, depends on the budget of the wedding. So then the question is whether she edits it and whether she does the pre-wedding. I think that the photographer that shoots the wedding should do the pre-wedding. So if you are freelancing out second shooters to shoot weddings in your brand, then they should develop that relationship with the couples and shoot the pre-wedding. And that's good experience for them, and it's good for that relationship. Whether you want to edit it yourself, that's up to you. But have some kind of structure, some kind of financial agreement with the shooters that there's a second shooter fee, there's a lead shooter fee, there's a lead shooter with pre-wedding and edit. So for example, let's say the lead shooter fee for pre-wedding and edit is 700. So they shoot, they do a pre-wedding first, they do the wedding and they edit the whole thing for £700. Then you know if you're selling them out at 2,000, then you know what your margin is. Just be clear about it and be consistent with your colleagues. Don't run before you can walk. Don't throw shooters into experiences that they're not ready for. Having someone who's a brilliant second shooter doesn't mean that they're going to be a great lead. A lead is a completely different thing with a complete new set of responsibilities. Are they completely ready for that? Because they're reflecting your brand. And in a sense, I would just keep an eye on that. Just when you're working with your photographer, give them extra responsibility while you're working, just to check it. Because you've got in your mind that you might want to lead them out on their own. So I've made mistakes where I've sent out shooters that are brilliant second shooters that don't have that leadership quality. So I think it's important to make sure that you're ready before you do it. It might be quite possible that you just are always a solo shooter, and that's absolutely fine. There's many successful photographers that are solo shooters. It isn't a prerequisite that to be successful you need a second shooter and you need a team. This is a direction, this is a knowing direction that you want to take or not. And if you do take that route, then it's feasible then that you're working in bigger situations, on bigger weddings with bigger teams. So if you then are on a shoot with 3 photographers or 4 photographers, I once had a wedding with 6 photographers. How do you manage 6 photographers in a team? How do you make sure that 6 photographers aren't in each other's pictures? And I think then you have to be careful as the lead, as the manager, to make sure that we're not getting in each other's way. And the way I do that is to plan. I normally would have one photographer shoot details only. So I'd say to that photographer, that's what you're doing on this wedding. It's a really big wedding. They're spending $2 million on this wedding. I need you to shoot that room, and that's all you're going to do. You're going to do still life, you're going to do tables, you're going to do the room. And the whole day you don't see a person. As the room is ready, it gets cleared for you, you shoot it. You move on to the next aesthetic space to shoot. And they then come away for you with all those sets of style shots. You might have one photographer just doing reportage. You should be doing the couple shots and probably the group shots too. So what happens to your other team? Do you always need them at the same time on set? It might be that you say, let's move back a bit. I only need 3 at this point. The other 3 can move away and have a break and so on. So just sharing and knowing that if you need 6, they're there. And if you don't, then you pull them back. because you need to be discreet at the same time. These are the things to consider. In 2017, I had a wedding in Spain, Barcelona, and I had 7 colleagues in my team. I had 4 photographers and 3 videographers. So as you can see from this film footage of the ceremony, you're not seeing us. And the reason you're not seeing us is because we've planned it. We worked out, obviously, alongside the planning with the planners and so on, what route the bride is taking as she emerges onto the aisle. And we organized our shots systematically and in order. So as each photographer took the position to take a shot, they would then move out the way and the next person took the place. And as each person took the shot, the person in the shot moved out the way. So that way, when you see this film footage, for example, you're not seeing the rest of my team. As you can see from this footage, there's drone footage. And I'm a drone pilot. I qualified in 2017. And because I offer film, I decided rather than working with freelancers, I'll qualify myself. And I found that useful, not just for my film work, but also my photography work. I've had situations where we're doing a group shot of everyone, the whole wedding party, maybe 120, 150 people, and there's no vantage point that I could get to that's high, and I'm using the drone instead. And these kind of cameras are producing 12 megapixel pictures, good enough for a single JPEG photo of a group shot. And they can be used for extra technology in your kit bag, which you can also sell upwards for.